Hello, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of Thoughts on Education with College Dunia, where we have Dr. Mohammad Jamil Manik with us today. He's the director of Global Business School, which is in Hubli, Karnataka. And I'll give you a small introduction about him before we begin. So, Dr. Manik has done his Masters of International Business, International Economics and Business. That is, another short for a different kind of an MBA, which is a very unique kind of a perspective towards education. So he knows his economics and business both very well. And before that, he had worked in industries like FMCG and even tea and coffee vending. That's a very interesting kind of an industry. And post that, he worked as a visiting faculty and a professor for various institutions like ISBR, KLE, IMSR, and BIMS Belgaum. And post that, he joined the Global Business School as a professor, and later on, he elevated towards becoming the Dean Academics and the director of the institution. So currently, he's the director. He has a very interesting take on education, and while I was interacting with him, I realized that GBS is a very premium institution which has actually positioned itself quite well for the MBA students. So I see that we can actually learn a lot from this interview. So let's just begin. Welcome, sir. Welcome to this interview.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
So, sir, before we begin, anything that you would like to start off with for the students about GBS?
Well, the students who have the aspirations of doing MBA from a Premier B school, and I would like to send a message to all the MBA aspirants that GBS is one of the best B school in Karnataka, and especially North Karnataka, which will mold and turn around the entire career of a student from village folks to MNC employee. So that's how we have done, and from rags to riches, we have seen amongst the students. Those who have joined with a very humble background, also we have helped, mentored, and guided them for even entrepreneurship also. Some of the students have become good, successful entrepreneurs also. So GBS is one of the B school in Karnataka, which is serious about its academics.
Okay, so that's, very promising to hear. So I'll begin with my question series, which I have for you, sir. So the first question that the students generally want to know is that you have held key positions at educational institutions throughout your professional career. So what are the key factors that keep you connected with the education sector?
The key factors in today's education is how fast students are able to adapt to the changes. We have seen that from 2015 onwards, the change has been very, very rapid. If I would like to give you an example, that in 2008 and 10, to shoot a movie or a wedding of very rich people or HNI, what we call high net worth individuals, we needed a helicopter, a pilot, and a person who's going to run the camera, professional. But today, a professional cameraman's job, helicopter's job, crew, and the pilot's job is done by one drone. So what about the employment of the people who lost job? So like that, these changes have happened in every field, in every sector, in every area. So the students need to require the skills and the ability to adapt to the changes and learn fast. Otherwise, they will not have job and they will not have a career. And to bridge this gap in GBS, especially what we are doing is we are creating the situations based on either in the market or offering them the projects or learning environment in such a way that the students are put in hot bed on a hot seat. So they will go through this grilling and grinding process where we can refine them to an extent that they develop the ability to adapt to the changes. They develop the ability to solve the problem. They develop the ability to change over very fast and learn and survive. So these skills are more emphasized. And the recent national education policy, which we have gone through, which is going to emphasize more on outcome-based teaching. So that has emphasized more on the effort what we were putting in. So we welcome that policy, and we are definitely making sure that the essence and the objective of policy is going to be met. And my take is in India, we are a huge country in terms of population size and all. Some of the cities population of our country equals to the country's population of in Europe. So that is the size I'm talking about. And when we talk about the size of the market, the number of people who consume food grains and the food products or beverages or FMCG products, if you consider the elite class, if you consider 10% of that, which is almost equal to some part of the continent, that is the size I'm talking about. And one state in India equals to the population and size of a continent. And if you look at the total size of the consumption and the production of India, 80 to 90% is absorbed inside, only 10% we export. So that is the potential of the country, what we see today. And India is one of the most potential country in the world in terms of service as well as in terms of manufacturing. Of course, we are not as at par with China in terms of manufacturing, but as in services, we are unbeatable. But China is catching up with their English, and Philippines is already a competitor to India, especially in outsourcing and in services. But with the size of engineers, technicians, and academics, students, and the graduates which we are producing every year, now that is going to give us a very bright future for India. And no doubt by 2025 or 2028, we will be definitely not just 5 trillion economy, but $7 to $8 trillion economy. We are going to. So that's what is my perception and opinion about the MBA. Over to you.
Okay, sir. So I see that the key factors over here which are keeping you grounded with the connected with the education sector are the outcome-based learning, which the NEP has also rightly stated, and the evolving with the technological advancements that the industry is overall bringing about. With every year, I mean, students are actually losing a lot of jobs, and you want them to actually evolve with that technological advancements. And of course, you have a lot of faith in the evolution of India in terms of a lot of academics being generated, and that is of course again a very promising thing. So I'll move on to the next question which we have over here, which is that being the director of the Global Business School, what is your philosophy of leadership and how would you describe your leadership style?
My leadership has been very democratic. I consider myself that a leader has to take the entire team along. You cannot be autocratic and monarch, because an institute is run by the team, not by a single director. Starting from an attender to till the director, we have our role to play. So in making the major decisions, whether it is administrative and the academic, I feel that I must consult and take a meeting. Yet at the end of the day, the decision is going to be taken by me only. As a director, I have my final call. But consulting all the employees, my colleagues and my staff, that gives them a feeling that we are also part of the process. We have been consulted, we have been asked. Whatever is being done today, it is based on my suggestion. It is based on my opinion. So whether I'm implementing what they have suggested or not, but I instill that feeling in them that whatever is happening today because of your inputs. So I feel in that kind of leadership. So
okay, so democratic is your style of leadership. That's nice, sir. So I'll move on to the next very important question, which a lot of students have asked, which is that how does the curriculum of Global Business School ensure the best practices in the industry?
Yes, it's a very good and very important question. I appreciate. Since we are affiliated institute to the Karnataka University Dharwad, we get a syllabus from university, which is having standard objectives and pedagogy. But in our institute, we break that into various sessions. And for every session, first the evaluation and assessment and the outcome of that. We decide first that. Then we make a course outline. In course outline, it is going to be very clear that once we complete a course, whether it is in marketing, finance, HR, or general management, what is going to be the outcome? At the end of the course, whether the student will be able to take decision for finance. For example, I'll give an example. In marketing, we solve case studies and we give them a project. In project, when we run that, it consists of a team, 6 members maximum, to monitor very closely. So 6 members team works in the implementation of each session in the project. Some of the faculties also get a small consultancies and all. Of course, for a small and tiny and hut industry, we do not charge. We give them free as a part of social corporate responsibility. We work on the free consultancy to some of the very, very small producing firms and all, home industries and all. For them, implementing marketing management, pricing, what we call the crux of marketing, 4 Ps, marketing mix, price, product, price, place, and promotion. We implement that literally for marketing, for developing, for advertising, for distributing, for developing that price of that product. So that assignment is given to students. So students will have the hands-on experience. And we get experience as a faculty, and the people who gave us that consultancy will get benefit of expanding their sales, their product availability, their product visibility and branding. And students get hands-on experience. So this is how we run the project. And the cases, we are the members of Harvard Business School case. As a faculty, we have the memberships with Harvard Business School case study deposits or banks. We use those case studies, we administer them in the classroom, and students are given the real life and near life situation to solve the issues. And of course, the Harvard Business School case studies are one of the best in the world. They are developed with the best of the best faculties in the world. So this is how we try to give the students the correct perspectives and the academic rigor. And these projects are run throughout the semester. After every chapter, I just gave you example of 4 Ps, like that advertising, like that segmentation, like that targeting. All the modules and chapters are implemented and the report is prepared. At the end of the semester, we ask the teams, each student of the team, to present their views and how they have done the project and share the experience. And we call either the people for whom they done the project, or we call people from the industry to evaluate and judge their presentation and report. So that will be evaluated by faculty and the industry person. So this is how we are trying to make their MBA relevant and current to the industry requirement and bridging the gap between institute teaching and industry requirement. So this is how the teaching is done at GBS, and it is unique. Over to you.
Great, sir. That's quite a lot, and I can see how students would actually be gaining a lot of insights into the industry and actually having a lot of hands-on experience before they would be going to the industry. And that is something that any institution should actually keep focusing on, because in general also industry has a lot of problem with Indian institutions where they are not giving them employable people. So employability is very important in terms of the education that we're getting, and I can see how that is something that GBS is actually imparting in a very good manner. So I'll move on to the next question, sir, which is that can you provide us any insights into how your college could actually be more welcoming to students of different races and economic backgrounds?
Yes, indeed. GBS is one of the most diverse institute of North Karnataka, including the faculty. GBS is equal opportunity employer, and GBS also is equal opportunity institute, where any student who qualifies, who is able to pursue his MBA, prove his or her potential in the interview and in the entrance test, which we conduct, are welcome. And this process is done in a very transparent way, in a very respectable manner. We judge and we acknowledge the students' talents, and we allow them to join us. The institute gets students from various backgrounds: faith, caste, creed, religion, and ethnicity. Majority of the students come from Hubli, Dharwad, twin cities. Around 50 to 60% students come from here. Remaining 40% we get from Belgaum district, Gulbarga, Bijapur, Karwar, and our admissions are stretched up to Davangere and Chikmagalur, Mangalore also. The students come from various backgrounds. Some people are sons and daughters of farmers. Some are sons and daughters of daily wage workers. Some are daughters and sons of private employed, self-employed, small businesses, hawkers, and even from very, very humble background also. And the bridging happens that once they sit in the classroom, the uniform makes them all same, uniform. Second thing is, we treat them all as a management graduate, that's it. Whether they come from BA, become BSc, poor, rich, middle class, farmer son, labor son, coolie son, or business tycoon son, or commissioner son, doesn't matter. They all sit in the same place. We eat our food in the same canteen, on the same table. We share the same water, same weather, same climate, same classroom. So this unifies. GBS, as truly said, global. We are the melting pot of many faiths, many cultures, and many faiths and caste, creed, religion, and economic status. And when they come with the background of very humble background, some of them, they have issues with finance. And what we are doing is through our able placement cell, we are also finding some part-time jobs also for them in malls, in apparel and shoes and accessory shops late in the evening, after 8 to 12 or kind of thing, or sometimes 6 to 8 on Sundays and Saturdays, whenever there are government holidays. So this will give them some pocket money plus experience to deal with customers, to listen to no. Otherwise, they feel they carry that horns that I'm an MBA. So that we make sure that we ground them first before they get into the market. So that grounding happens when they get employed. So this we do it for rich, poor, middle class, all class. So that's how GBS is a melting pot of all level, all status, and all caste, creed, religion, and faiths. Over to you.
Wonderful, sir. That's really nice to hear. I mean, grounding students before they can actually enter the industry is very important. So it's very nicely said that you're actually functioning as a crucible of which is melting all kinds of social, economic, and religious backgrounds into a single global business school pass out. That's it. So that's very interesting. And I'll move on to the next question, sir, which is that what do you think should be the college priority over the next 10 years?
Yes, this is very serious question and apt for the time. Coming 10 years are going to be very crucial for our country, because we are in the crossroad of development now. When you consider the race between China and India, we both got independence from the colonial rule at the same time, 1945 to 50, in between that time. China was also, in fact, China's GDP and per capita income was lesser than India till 60s. It wasn't that high. But after 60s, some of the measures which China took, especially going for a mixed economy, they are purely communist economy. Everything is controlled by the government. But 60 and 70 onwards, China realized that if we go only with government controlled economy, we will be able to only feed the population and provide food, clothing, and shelter. Now, what about technology and growth? So they realized that, and they gradually allowed. They had a huge labor force and population. Nearby them, Hong Kong was a British colony, which was under 99-year lease. And Hong Kong was very close to China. And they allowed investors from Hong Kong and come and invest in China. So that is the first FDI in China, which flew in 70s and 80s. And people from Hong Kong, especially businessmen and industrialists, they came in China and they invested. The FDI which India allowed in 91, China allowed it in 70s. So that 20 years gap, what China has an advantage over India, that pushed China to have 5 to 6 times more, bigger economy than India today. Chinese economy is around $15 trillion today. Indian economy is around $3 trillion today. So that 5 times gap is the reason because China opened its economy in 70s. We opened our economy very slowly in 91, and rest is the history. And after 70s, China gone for a very rapid expansion, and the FDI opening up economy and going for production houses. Since their labor is very, very cheapest in the world, China had that advantage. In India, we were, balanced between socialistic pattern and capitalistic pattern of economy. So in the juggling between which is better and which is bad, in that only we spent almost 20 years, 91 to 2010. We spent almost time there. By the time we fully opened in 2010 onwards, China had already gone miles ahead of us. So, which has become one of the powerful country in the world, superpower in the world. So that gap between the India and China is the training of labor force, the kind of skills you employed. Once they opened up the economy, most of the population, especially the technical, China was able to afford to send them to Western world to go to study in US universities, US tech universities. And these people went to US and got graduated. These tech universities in US parted the education in such a way that the people who migrated from China to get education in China did not went and settled there only. They came back to China and established industries, production houses, and manufacturing plants. Whereas Indians, you take from IITs to RECs to NITs, with a highly subsidized fees, they studied, and at the expense of all the taxpayers, they went, got green card, married there only, and settled in US only. Out of 100 people, 1 or 2 people came back from US and contributed a little bit to the Indian economy. And that is where there is a shortage of capital, FDI flow in India. Because of that, we were lagged behind. So I feel that now India has to concentrate more on producing skill-based and outcome-based graduates who are absolutely ready to work, whether it is tech graduates or business graduates or administrative graduates. They should be ready to work. What we are doing is we are just churning out the graduates who are just passing out of the institute with a degree, with a mass card called BA, BSc, BCom, BE, MBA. But practically, when you want to implement, I'm keeping IIMs and IITs away because they are the count may be around 100, but remaining 5 to 6,000 institutes, MBA institutes, and around 8 to 10 to 12,000 engineering colleges across India, they lag. They are not able to produce the graduates and the trained professionals which are apt of the hour. So India should focus more on education, especially technical education and higher education. Of course, the foundation also has to come from the primary level also. And our education system should be streamlined. And we have to learn the education system from across the world. There was a time when India was one of the world group. If you go back to Nalanda and Takshashila time, in the beginning, 2000 to 3000 year old, we were the Vishwa Guru. India was the leader in education with Nalanda and Takshashila universities. People from across the world used to come in India and study. And it is very, very, with a heavy heart and with a very bad, feeling, I would like to say that hardly any of our institute figure in the top 100 universities in the world. So that is the state of our today's education. Again, yes, we got a chance now to again go back to our glory. We can bring back those glorious days. But the thing is, we need to have good policies, have good allocation in the budget for the education, starting from primary to till post-graduation and research. Then only we will be able to make some progress. If you are aiming at $1 trillion economy, $10 trillion economy in another 10 years, I think we must invest very heavily in education and research. That is where we are lagging. A country like Israel, it's part of its GDP is higher than what we invest as a country of $3 trillion, and that is where we are very, very far behind in terms of registering our patents, research, development, we lag a lot. So for the coming 10 years, the priority of India has to be education, research, and development. If we invest very heavily in this, then automatically the investment will flow in, infrastructure will develop, the employment will develop, entrepreneurship will develop, and we don't need, $100 billion, 10 companies. We need $1 billion, 1,000 companies. So that is going to provide employment opportunity to many people who are unemployed. Basically, India is a labor-intensive industry. We are not capital-intensive industry like Japan and US. We need to understand our roots and we should not copy anybody. We should learn from them, and what is applicable to India, we need to apply. Blindly copying China, blindly copying to UK, Germany, US doesn't work in India. We have our own model, we have our own problems, we have our own issues. We need to look at what is good and what holds good for India in the present context. So for the next coming 10 years, it is education and research. Over to you.
Okay, so that's very nicely put. So I'll move on to the next question, sir, which is that what would you like the students and the people to know about your college that you think they might not know?
GBS is placed in the North Karnataka, in the heart of North Karnataka, that is Hubli city, which is connected with rail, road, and airport. Very active airport also. And it has business houses. Many big industries are also there. Tata, Hitachi. Then we have Infosys campus. We have Tata Marco Polo. We have Spicer. We have BDK Wire. There are big industries in Hubli, Dharwad. And commercially, Hubli is considered as the commercial hub of North Karnataka, which covers the radius of almost 200 kilometers up to Kolhapur and Goa. From there, it supplies all the wholesale, industrial products, raw materials, and market hub. GBS is the pioneer institute in North Karnataka, which has integrated the industry involvement, corporate involvement, be it from the assessment of the projects, assignments, Viva, interview, and the fests and competitions conducted. So this institute, integrates a lot of things from the industry to make sure that that gap between what you're learning in class and what actually you are going to work outside once you complete your graduation, that we are narrowing it every year and every month, every day and every week. For that, every faculty strives. Faculties goes outside, attends the corporate training also. I myself have attended training very recently in ICICI Bank. They have a program called, faculty immersion program. In that, they ask faculty to join the bank for half a day or 4 hours every day for 2 months to understand each and every process of a bank, starting from welcoming a customer as a receptionist to. Yeah. So I was referring about the involvement of corporate in our project assessments and all. So this institute does the training for students, especially students who come from vernacular background, those who come from villages, hinterlands. They are good in subject concepts, but they are relatively poor in communication because of exposure. So for them, additional tutorials, additional sessions are conducted from language teachers, so language lab, and language experts, not only from in-house, but also we involve people from outside, consultants from Bangalore, some consultancy agencies for training them on skills and training them on, especially on the area of communication, etiquettes, mannerism, and even the language skills. So English is one of the most preferred language, especially in official. But on the field, what we speak is a different story, but we try to make them understand from the point of view of the language, especially English. So for that, tutorials, English lab and other developmental programs are also offered. As far as the placement is concerned, we train them on the soft skills areas, how to give an interview, how interviews are conducted, GDs are conducted. So these are the pre-placement activities which is conducted by placement manager of our institute, plus all the faculties also share the load. Anything over and above which we require any additional help and additional support to students, We also hire consultants and trainers from Bangalore, and we fulfill it. So this takes care of a 360-degree development of a student, language, skills, subjects, and their overall personality, and in each and every aspect of the student's overall development. So GBS is the best institute for you people to join and make a great career. Our students work from retail to real estate, from Jana Bank to HSBC Bank, from HDFC credit card division to Amex credit card division, and AC Nelson to McKinsey. Also, our students work from consultancy, research, insurance, banking. Students work from Malaysia to Singapore, and Dubai to US and UK. Our students are spread across the world. So this is what is the reason to join GBS.
Okay, sir. All right. So the next question that I have for you is that what are some of the biggest challenges that you see for both the higher education in general and for Global Business School in particular?
In the wake of the fast changing environment, we need to keep the pace, the institute as well as the students, teachers as well as the learners. One thing is, as I was giving you an example of, in 90s and 2000, we needed a helicopter to shoot a marriage. If you want to shoot it from above, and for big marriages, who all were there in helicopter? One was pilot, second one was crew, third one was cameraman, and another additional person, plus helicopter was employed. Today, with one drone, you are doing away with everyone. Just a person who is holding the drone control is able to snatch away the jobs of a pilot, a crew, and a cameraman, everything. So like that, it is happening in every sector. And once the technology is going to change, especially it is going to change very fast in automobile sector. Once the electrical cars are going to come into picture, what about the entire vehicle functioning, the accessories, products, spare parts, components, which are needed for an engine? All industries will go off. It has happened in case of many products. We had pager, it disappeared when mobile came. We had STD, ISD centers. We used to queue hours together to call one person outside district. That too in the late evening at 10 p.m. onwards, because rates were half. Where are those STD booths now? They all have got converted into either SIM card sellers or those SIM card package sellers or accessory sellers today. Like that, the changes are going to happen. Are we prepared enough ourselves to face the challenges of future? This future is going to change very fast. What changes we experienced in 5 years, we are going to experience that in 1 year. So by the time the student joins MBA course, he or she passes out after 2 years, what job training we were giving them in 2 years may not be existing after they pass out of the institute. Are you prepared for that? How you have prepared the student for that, to experience and to prepare himself, herself for the future challenges. So these challenges are going to be addressed by the institute. For higher education, change is one thing. Second thing is the mindset of the students. We need to work on the attitude and mindset of the students also. Every MBA or engineering graduate, after they pass out of the institute, they expect some cozy job with a big cabin, secretary, car, air-conditioned cabin and all. So that has to be said. Whether you pass out from a Harvard Business School or Global Business School or IIM Ahmedabad, your first job as a trainee, you have to roam on the streets of Uttar Pradesh, of Bihar, of Madhya Pradesh, of Karnataka, that too in a hinterland. If you go to some of the villages, you don't even a bus stop, a shelter to wait for the bus. Forget about lodging, restaurant, fast food and all. They should learn. And a student of Harvard Business School and IIM Ahmedabad or ISB, when they spend their time 2 years in streets selling 10 rupees worth of a soap or a shampoo to a shopkeeper who has not even passed 7th class, requesting him to buy a product of HUL, P&G, Dabur, so on. So that matters because they are our customer. I may be a gold medalist in IIT Delhi, IIT Bombay, IIT Madras. I may be gold medalist in IIM Ahmedabad. I may be having my degree from Stanford or Harvard Business School or ISB. But my career is going to start from the street. So your work and your salary is determined first, fixed. And you cannot expect 40, 50,000 salary passing out from tier 3, tier 4 B schools in the first paycheck, sitting in cabin. That's not going to happen. You have to be there on road. You have to struggle for 2 years. You have to learn. You have to understand. Then only you will be. So we have to set the expectations of the students and aspirations of the students also. Their job profile, their job description, plus the salary. What they get after 5 years, they expect it in the first salary. That's not possible. So this is what I would like to give a message and a suggestion to MBA and engineering students to manage their expectation. Students have to understand their levels, their expectation, their aspirations, depending on what B schools they are studying and what engineering school or college they are studying in. So they have to prepare themselves. They also have to judge, evaluate every time. Am I worth for this salary and this package and this salary? So that is what is going to make a change. That is what we have to settle. Over to you.
Yeah, so that's again a very important kind of a message that you've given to the students, and I believe if they keep this in mind, they'll definitely have an easier, at least an easier transition from their colleges to their work cultures, whichever organization they go. So I'll move on to the next question which I have, sir. This is the second last question in this series, and the question is that what are some plans that you are currently or you will be designing for the Global Business School's international affairs and the students?
Yes, it's a good question. Right now, we are focusing on NBA, National Board of Accreditation. Maybe in 6 or 7 months, we will be, inshallah, accredited with NBA. Once NBA is done, we are free to design our own curricula, own subjects, own fee structure, own calendar of events, activities, examination and all, because we get autonomy. And we are going to enhance the quota also. We are also looking outside Karnataka, and we want to have pan-India presence. Right now, we are having students from only 2-3 states: Karnataka, Goa, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, and Tamil Nadu. So from here, we are getting students. Once we are autonomous, our quota is enhanced. We are also going to look at foreign students also. And for that, we are also working on having collaboration with the foreign universities, especially in Gulf, in Indonesia, in Egypt, then France, Germany, UK, US. We are establishing our contacts, and we are trying to rope in the institutes and universities to collaborate with us for faculty exchange, student exchange, joint collaborative research, publications. We are working. Maybe by the end of 2022, GBS will be able to have some collaborations with foreign universities, some foreign students will be there, some foreign faculty will also be there. So this is how we are going to make Global Business School truly global once the accreditation is done. So in that direction, the work has already begun. Over to you.
Okay, sir. All right. So I'll move on to the last question which I have in this series now. And the question is that how do you tend to establish a healthy relationship with the environment in your college and with the society in general?
You mean to say corporate connection or CSR or environment?
How do you tend to establish a healthy relation and environment in your college in general?
In general, if you ask me about student-faculty relationship, that healthy environment, there is something called mentoring process. We do rigorously and very judiciously follow it. Very scrupulously, we conduct sessions and interact with students. It's very personalized. My 10 students are like my kids. So I know each and every detail of my kid. If he or she has not come to college absent today, I know what is the reason. Either he or she is not well, something has gone wrong, or something very serious. Because of that, they have not attended. Otherwise, my mentees won't remain absent from the classes and sessions. Plus, any problem and issues they face, which they cannot air and express in the open classroom, they come and tell me, sir, yesterday's session, I was not able to follow. I did not learn this stat session, this computer session, or this account session, or corporate communication session, something. they are not able to do it out of hesitancy, or maybe they may have that feeling that others may feel that they may let me down, so they didn't air these problems in the classroom. So what we do, we have established such a healthy relationship with the students. They come to us and request, can you help? So again, I go and request my colleague, my mentee so and so in this session did not get through. Kindly, I request, though I'm a director and professor, I request my junior most colleague, can you conduct and help my mentee? So he or she has not understood, please do it for me. A formal mail or a letter goes from my desk, requesting my colleague. So this healthy relationship makes us to interdependency. We dependent on each other. So that makes us humble, grounded, and useful to each one. So it's not that I'm a director, I'm a professor, I'm a HOD. We are not compartmentalized. We work as a team. We are dependent on each other. So this dependency makes us more humble, establishes more healthy and better environment amongst the colleagues, as well as with the student community, plus with the student community's parents also. And there are also some instances when the parents who are not able to mold or shape their sons and daughters, especially their weird fashion, wearing accessories, long hair or curly hair, or the very awkward fashion, they come and request us. We have told many times to my son and daughter, they're not listening to us. Can you put a word and change them, and please tell them this looks very awkward, doesn't look good at all. We have done that also, personal counseling at their attire, at the dress, and even their behavior, their language, their habits. And we also have counseled students with some habits also, alcoholic when they had joined. And some were drug addicts also. We converted them also. We put them on the path. We called some psychologists and some, the counselors in our institute. That session also we do conduct. And we have established a very healthy and cordial relationship with among the staff, among the student and staff, among the student, staff and parents, plus the industry also. Sometimes we also do send students and deploy students for product launch, promotion programs of corporates and all event management companies. So with that, we have good healthy relationship with the organizations, government statutory bodies, and industries also in and around Hubli-Dabhar. Over to you.
Okay, sir, that's, very nicely put. And I think a lot of the questions that the students had today about GBS have been answered in a very descriptive and detailed kind of a manner in this interview. So I would like to thank you, sir, for this insightful and informative session that you had with us. And I'm sure that it will be really helpful for the students in general, and specifically those students who are aspiring to become the students of GBS in this and the upcoming academic years. And I wish you luck, sir, and luck and safety. And I wish that you achieve all of those aspirations which you mentioned in this interview, and whatever you're trying to achieve with GBS in the upcoming years. And I also wish that all of your staff and you stay healthy and stay safe in these hard and trying times of the global pandemic. So thank you so much for all of this informative session, sir.
All pleasures. Thank you, Anshul, for giving me an opportunity to be part of your portal, which is one of the most sought and most preferred portal of MBA aspirants and college aspirants, engineering, MBA and all. And I wish you all the success and all the best, Anshul. Stay safe, stay healthy, take care. Thank you.
Thank you.